Have you ever heard the expression, if mama ain't happy, nobody's happy? Well, the same thing goes for us as business owners. If we ain't happy, it just trickles downhill, baby. And today's guest, Katie McDonald, is going to talk to us all about self-care, why it's important, and how not to feel so guilty about it. Oh, and stop being so mean to ourselves. Stay tuned. Hey kids, and welcome to Designed by Wingnut Social. If you are watching us on YouTube, you can see us in all of our extraordinary glory, guests, designs, and all at Designed by Wingnut Social. Wingnut Social? Wingnut Social. Head on over to YouTube and hit that like and subscribe and sit back and make sure to watch the bloopers at the end. My favorite part. I wanted to add a little personal aside in here. You know how at the end of every show I say, get out there, get uncomfortable, and be great? Well, I do a lot of things in daily life with the business that are a little uncomfortable. Great is, debatable. Doing this podcast, I still get nervous, still get out there running a business. There's a lot to do, right? Just do it. But I've been kicking around for a long time playing poker in a casino with people I don't know, that I don't, that aren't friends and family are going to tell me how amazing I am. And finally, I got up the nerve on Sunday to hit up the MGM here at National Harbor in Maryland. Is it in Maryland? I guess it's still in Maryland. Is it Virginia? I don't know. It's in Maryland, right? And I played a little 4-8 pot limit, right? Hold'em. And I won $45. I thought I was going to get my handed to me. And I actually did okay. But man, was I shaken. I was so nervous. It was like first day of school. But anyhow, I went out there and I did it. And I won $45. And the only reason I only won $45 and didn't lose any is because I just I hit it and quit it. I went in there, got the feel of it, got my nerves out, played a little bit, won a little bit, and said, okay, that's enough for now. And I took my little $45 and went home. But there you go. Did it. So there. Little self-horn tooting there. A little tooting, which is another story altogether. All right, guys, remember, Wingnut Social is a marketing agency for you guys, the interior design genre, architects to the trade vendors, and interior designers. Head on over to wingnutsocial.com to check out our services. By far and away, 1,000,000 times to one, our most popular services are done for you social media management. But we also have our new program, our hybrid social media management program that you guys might want to check out if you're a little challenged on the budget side, maybe a newer designer. Head on over to wingnutsocial.com and hit up that Let's Chat button, see how we can work together. And we still have Instagram, our Wingnut Academy, our Instagram for Interior Designers course that is just do at your own pace, take it, build your strategy, build your positioning, your value propositions, your content pillars. It really walks you through a legit marketing strategy to help you grow awareness of your business on Instagram, and is an incredible course. That is also at wingnutsocial.com. All right, guys, before I get into my conversation with Katie McDonald, you know the drill. Decades ago, the demands of Katie McDonald's corporate career occupied her every waking moment. She was left feeling depleted and depressed, suffering from spiraling mental and physical health crises that threatened her life. Left with no choice but to transform her body and mind relationship, Katie abandoned her corporate job and healed herself. Fully recovered from years of self-neglect, Katie now works with high achievers who are taking care of business at the expense of taking care of themselves. I'm talking to you. You know who I'm talking to. I'm sure that already resonated with people in the audience. And my conversation with Katie was eye-opening and I think transformative. So keep listening. Hey there, Katie McDonald. Welcome to the show. How the hell are you?
I am happy to be here, Darla. Thanks for having me.
I am so happy to be here with you as well. And well is the key word here because we're talking about being well and taking care of yourself and self-care today and how important it is. And we tend to poo-poo this as business owners, as driven entrepreneurs, and always balls to the wall. I got to get this done. But I think we're gonna take that back a little bit today. Are we?
We are so going to take that back.
Awesome. So Katie, just before we dig in, tell me a little bit about yourself and your journey to this realization. And I think we're going to have a really, really interesting talk today.
Well, I was addicted to doing. And the human doing part, I nailed. The human being part, not so much. I threw myself into anything that I did, but particularly my career. I had something to prove, and really to just try to claim my place in the world. And I thought the only way I could get that is through sheer determination and effort. And I knew I was capable of outworking anyone. And that's what I was going to do. That was the only lever I knew to pull to be successful. And so I started out in San Francisco for Time Inc., selling advertising in 45 national publications after a few local gigs, and then moved to Germany and worked for Ernest and Julio Gallo selling wine after I learned the language in a couple of months. And then I returned to Time Inc. again in Seattle and also in upstate New York. And each time holding myself to standards that weren't reflective of reality. That when I was in upstate New York, I held myself to the standard as if I was in the San Francisco market, wanting to be one of the top performers, regardless of, just conditions and reality. I was so driven to the point of addiction. And the only thing that stopped me was illness. And this is what I see over and over again, that we don't often, high achievers don't have that internal self-monitor to say, hey, like that symptom is an indication that what you're doing isn't working. Or, we got to slow down a little bit. Like any bodily need was a distraction from what I considered productive.
Can you speak to the physical and mental effects of this drive that you had a little bit?
Yes.
Like, how did that manifest itself? Not without, violating, I don't want to violate any HIPAA laws or anything.
No, I believe in full transparency. I feel like if I endured something, it was for a purpose to perhaps maybe soften someone else's blow, to be a softer place for them to land. And so I needed to learn it in several phases, but the big one was that I had reached the point at my career where I was suicidally depressed. I had already written a letter because I realized like I will never, ever be able to do enough to feel like I'm enough. And that, like, I just saw there is no finish line here, and I don't have it in me. And I had this fantasy that if I could just keep moving, I'd be in the Have It All Together club. And first of all, it doesn't exist. Second of all, that delusion like just hit an expiration point. And I understood once and for all that my failing body, I had, asthma, allergies, depression, as I said, suicidal ideation, I just complete lethargy. And I just decided I have to quit. And it was the only way. I couldn't figure out how to work within the system. So I had to remove myself out of desperation from the system. And within 2 weeks, my husband and I conceived a child after trying for years.
Oh, wow. Well, that'll do it. Well, a lot at one time. Yeah. Well, first of all, I have to say I'm very glad that you're here. Right. And that is something that I think that we don't talk about enough is having that kind of pressure and people feeling that level of desperation and feeling less than and attributing it to an internal reason or something wrong with them.
Yes.
And hopefully your story here, if anyone's feeling similarly or feeling this despondent or physically, will help. Right. So I do thank you so much for being transparent about that. I mean, I'm 56 years old. I'm not going to say I've never been there. I was a cop for 18 years. There's been some lows in my life as well, and I know people as well. Thank God they're still here. But it was just some similar story. So,
but do we have to get to that point, Darla? I appreciate that. Like, we don't have to get to that point. And some people might hear my story and be like, well, I'm not that far gone. You don't have to be that far gone to answer that little whisper within you that says, I can't do this anymore. Like, this isn't sustainable.
Right. And like I said, I have people very close to me who are like that at this time. So I want my obvious question here is, if you're in a career like you are, and I'm sure that at the level you are operating, it was fairly lucrative.
Yes.
Right. And it is taking this toll. It's extolling this cost, right, on you. And you're making X amount of money a year and you're going to work and you're saying, I can't, I'm going to lose my house. I'm going to lose my mortgage. I'm going to lose. That's a huge struggle. How did you navigate that? Did you just get lucky? I mean, and you had a child on the way and you were married. So that I'm sure there was some support there. So tell me a little bit more about that journey.
A tremendous amount of support. I mean, and I was in a privileged position that I could leave. we felt it financially. I mean, we really felt it. Our life changed as a result. The company car was gone. The incentive trips. I mean, I won every incentive trip all over the globe. Those were gone, which are very, prestigious and fun. But most importantly, my identity was gone. And the sense of self-worth that we get by having a title, by, I sell advertising in Architectural Digest and Elle Decor, and that kind of prestige and presence, that when you don't feel that you have a right to be, that you have to earn it, right? You have to make that next sale. You have to get that next deal. You have to design that next house. There's always this moving target for what is enough, so that you feel like you're enough. There's really there's no stopping that unless there's some kind of intervention. And for me, I had to hit the basement of rock bottom. I had to go to hell, and I had to take notes and come back and say, like, okay. And I should say, I hadn't even figured it out at this point. I made a decision to quit, and I timed it with my commission checks because we needed that. We counted on that. And so I had to endure for several more months. And then I quit, and then immediately had a child. And I didn't learn my lessons. I transferred my professional perfectionism to motherhood. I still hadn't figured it out, and had to get even further sick. Ulcerative colitis, pneumonia, shingles, asthma, allergies, the depression, all of it. Not the suicide, because suicidal ideation, because I had a child, and all of a sudden for him, I needed to be around, but I had to figure this out. So my body broke down again, and my mind as well. And it was during a meditation retreat when I decided, I am going to slay this dragon. I am going to stare it down. And the lining of my colon fell out. And all of a sudden, I'm on another whole healing journey to try to recover. And I would say it is a daily practice. That was 22 years ago. It is a daily practice.
Let me back up a little bit. So you left the corporate job, right? And thinking, okay, that is going to solve the problem. Yes. But really, you just transferred it to another high performer, right? So
yes.
I'm sure there was a lot of relief on some of that stress, and some of the stress was added, right? I'm having a kid cannot be no stress, and losing some of that income.
Yep.
And you were prepared for it. So the meditation piece, speak more to that. Was that the absolute first piece in learning how to take care of yourself and to come around this? Were there other aspects?
Oh gosh, I have been passionate about alternative wellness and self-development, personal development since I was a teenager, trying to kind of make sense of my cray-cray at a very early age, and reading every book, having every book by my nightstand be nutrition and meditation and well-being and alternative practices. Like that has been a long-standing passion, but it was always because I needed to fix myself. There was something wrong with me, to your point that you made earlier. There's got to be something inherently wrong with me. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to solve it. And I would have to say the meditation piece, I had meditated. I'd taken meditation classes. I had done all this thing, but I was like, I'm going to do a 5-day silent Zen meditation retreat. I'm going to nail this thing. I tackled it like it was a business problem. I'm going to slay it. And it, like, of course, how ridiculous. And here it is, like a retreat that was no treat whatsoever. And it was, instead of a retreat, it was an immersion into my crazy. And literally the lining of my colon fell out. It's like, peace out. I'm out of here. I am done.
I can't even imagine that.
And I've been called anal before, but that was like a new level of like, just really? I didn't even know what it was. Like, I literally thought I had earned hemorrhoids for time logged on a meditation cushion. I'm like, what a badass I am. Like, literally badass.
Wow. Okay. So, all right. So we did this. We approached even the meditation retreat with a ball. I'm going to win. I'm going to be number one meditator. And your body said, I have something else in mind for you, Katie. Okay. So after that, what do you do? What was the light bulb? Tell me about that.
The light bulb was that I was put on bed rest, and I had to rely on other people. And that's not something I had done before. I really felt like to be a lovable person, to be a loving person, is to be a low maintenance person. So I kept the balls in the air so that I wouldn't have needs. my own needs were nuisances, and I definitely didn't want to have needs for anybody else. But here I was, completely dependent on my husband. And my neighbors came to the door and said, we're going to walk, my son is named Sage. We're going to walk Sage around the block. We're going to let us help. And they were empty nesters, and here they were feathering my nest. And I had brought them, bounty from our garden. I had, baked them goods. I had, shoveled their driveways whenever, I was a good neighbor, but I never allowed for receiving. And here I was with no choice but to receive. And that's when I realized, self-care is a birthright. Self-neglect is selfish. My family needed me, and I rendered myself completely helpless through self-neglect. That's the light bulb moment. I have got to fix this. I've got to change this. And I had to change the way I change, because the only way I used to change before is by beating myself up, saying, oh, you've got to do this. Oh my God, I can't believe you just ate that. Well, now it's green juice tomorrow. Hardcore kind of, again, this hardcore approach. And I had to say, could I change out of love for myself, even though I don't feel the love yet? Could I act as if I am loving someone else? Like I love my son, my friends, my husband so freely, my family. Why am I somehow excluded from that? I'm going to fake it until it becomes part of my habit to love myself and to do it through action.
So what were some of the actions that you took to do this? And I want to just add that yesterday I had a lot of Debbie cakes, and this morning I had green juice. True story.
So my message resonates, right? It's
100%,
it's this angel, devil kind of leather and lace swing that we do, where the real juice, pun intended, is in the middle, right? What is it like to, go for a walk and not have to do CrossFit? Could going for a walk for 30 minutes be okay? Could that be enough for me to say, I've moved my body today? It started with the way that I talk to myself. And this is what I hear in my concierge coaching practice. The way my clients talk to themselves initially is abhorrent. I mean, I feel defensive and protective immediately of the way, and I hear it and I know it. We are bullies to ourselves, and the terrorism doesn't reside just in foreign lands. It's within our own minds. That punishing voice that tells us we're not enough, we haven't done enough. So it started with how I talked to myself. I looked for these tiny little wins, wow, good for you. You had a green juice today. Good for you. You had 4 Debbies instead of 5. This, sometimes it was that, or good for you. You did laundry today. I mean, it depended, but we don't celebrate ourselves enough. We know what's wrong. We don't get to take a moment to be like, hey, let me glance back instead of focused on the future. Let me glance back and be like, hey, good job.
That's true, because sometimes the way we talk to ourselves, and I'm going by experience, is, we are our own worst enemies in some of the things that we say to ourselves. And if we can picture a loved one and picture ourselves saying those same things to a loved one, what pieces of we would be to say that to them, right? Why are we talking to ourselves that way? So that's a very interesting way to look at it, for sure.
And the relationship we have with ourselves will outlast all others till death do us part, right? We are stuck with ourselves, and we better start repairing that relationship through kindness and learning how to tolerate our own company. I mean, Darla, we don't know how to sit with ourselves. We don't know how to be in our own presence. And that's the addiction to busyness, the guilt of oh my gosh, I can't take care of myself. That means I'm not taking care of someone else. So if we're going to make a choice, we're always going to throw ourselves under the bus. Well, what if we change that? What if we actually said, you know what, I'm going to keep my word to myself. I'm going to keep the promises that I make to myself. And when we do that, in small ways, over and over again, we befriend ourselves and we start treating ourselves like we would a friend.
All right, you guys know, or at least I hope you know, or if you don't, I'm not doing my job, that we do full service social media management for you guys, interior designers, architects, and to the trade vendors or furnishing manufacturers, etc. But we are excited to announce our very new hybrid plan with Wingnut Social. It's kind of a half done for you, half you do it yourself sweet spot. If you're a beginning designer or a firm who's just really kind of getting started in social media marketing, but don't quite have the marketing budget to delegate it to a marketing firm, because that's a pretty decent size investment, right? This is our hybrid solution, and it's perfect for busy designers who the power of consistent professional content on Instagram. You've heard guest after guest and client after client say how they're getting leads from Instagram, right? But you have that overwhelm. You have no idea what to post, when to post, what the hashtags and captions should look like for a value proposition, a mix in order to reach your ideal client. Well, ta-da! Introducing the hybrid plan with Wingnut Social. You get a monthly content calendar where we create the content for you and you post at your leisure on your own time with our guidance. We're doing the posts, we're doing feed posts, we're editing reels for you. You get 8 feed posts, 2 reels. We're writing the captions for you. We are researching the hashtags for you that drive engagement with guidance, best practices, and quarterly strategy sessions to make sure that your strategy and everything is in alignment with your business goals. So if you want to find out some more information on our amazing hybrid plan, it's been very popular so far. Head on over to wingnutsocial.com and hit up that Let's Chat button, and let's see how we can work together. Again, that's wingnutsocial.com. In the green room, we were talking a little bit about when we were talking about, yes, I had Debbie cakes, or how I deal with the stress of anything. I'll have a Debbie cake or a cigar or whiskey, or maybe buy something, right? Yeah. I think I'm not alone in that. A lot of people do that. It's a form of self-medication, but you said something really interesting, and I want to dive in on that, and that's like weaponized. We do that in a weaponized way. Can you speak to that a little more?
Well, when we were talking about it earlier, what I was referencing is that self-care, like we all know what we're supposed to be doing. I mean, I'm an expert in this, and I couldn't probably tell you, the basics of what we're supposed to do: sleep, exercise, water. We all know it, but we're not doing it, right?
Right.
And what we do is we add it to our exhausting, to-do list, and it just cascades to the bottom, one after another, because we have to make a choice. Is it them or me? Is it that task or me? Is it productivity or me? And we're always going to get the short end of the stick if our measurement for what we say yes to is, that productivity, that task completion. So all of a sudden, this to-do list of what we're supposed to do for self-care becomes weaponized against us. It's another thing we're supposed to do that we're not doing, and our head hits the pillow, and the shame fest starts. And then we make this silent promise to ourselves. We mutter, tomorrow's going to be different. Yep, tomorrow's going to be different. I'm going to get up, and I'm going to have that green juice. I'm going to go for that walk. I'm going to meditate. Well, and yet, we'll wake up, or we didn't sleep well, or we pick up our phone, and we're off to the races again because we allowed the outside world to decide for us what our priorities were. We tune in with the outside world through email, through our tasks, through media, through social media, and we forget to tune in with ourselves first.
How much of that is sabotaged? How much of that is serving us, right? So to be able to say, tomorrow I'm going to do the green juice, or, next Monday I'm going to start doing whatever it is that you feel is important to make you happy. And I'm holding up air quotes.
Yeah. So science says that our brain, when we tell ourselves we're doing it, thinks we've actually done it. And that can work to our advantage, and it can work to our disadvantage. All those habits that you outlined, that we all do, we all have our version. I mean, I was addicted to sugar. Busyness is bitter, but sugar is so sweet, right? And alcohol is sugar. So it's the same, it's all the same thing. And all of it is designed to numb. It's designed to shut us down, to keep us in a state of amnesia. And it is a self-protection tactic. And what I ask, and what I have learned and continue on a daily basis to learn, is on the other side of that impulse to shut down is this deep need to awaken, to learn, to listen. To the answer to this question that we're not asking enough is, what do I need? We ask, what do I need to do? Check. That's like all day long. But what do I need? And when we slow down and we slow our roll, that wisdom comes to us. And when we listen and then implement, we repair the relationship we have with ourselves once and for all.
I love it. So, Katie, do you think that if you could transport back in time 20 years and put yourself in the physical career that you had, knowing what you know now, would that have made a difference? Or would you have decided, oh, I'm just not happy with this career and leave earlier but healthier?
I love being an entrepreneur. I think it has the potential for being the greatest act of self-care in our business world. I say that potential because a lot of us have these fantasies, and I work with a lot of interior designers in my coaching practice and deliver as a keynote presenter presentations to interior design audiences. And we tell ourselves like, oh, well, I'm going to start my own business and then I'm going to have greater balance, which by the way is a total myth anyway. It's a delusion. It is, we replicate the very torture or pressure that we left, saying like, bye-bye, we recreate it. We tell ourselves this story, oh, I'm going to just get my business to this level, and then I'm going to take vacation time, and then I'm going to pay myself a little bit more. Then I'm going to go to, home after, 5 o'clock. I see the other end of that. I see the clients that tell themselves that story. They've been in business 3-5 years, sometimes longer, and they are trapped by their success. Their interior design practices and firms are thriving, and yet they are circling the drain, not protecting their creativity. At the personal level, they're everything on the front facing, right? Because it could be, we could get caught in appearances in this industry, right? Front facing, it's all beautiful. But behind the surface, they are circling the drain. They're working till 7, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. And they start questioning, am all I doing like fluffing pillows? Like it becomes this, am I selling my soul for something that is superficial? These are the questions that I'm hearing from my interior design clients. Is this meaningful work? Because I'm selling my soul for it.
And it is. And I was a designer before I did this, right? Before I did the podcast and the marketing agency. And it was my lifelong dream to become an interior designer. Before that, I was a cop for 18 years. And you can imagine, I was a sergeant in Miami-Dade. You can imagine how stressful that was. Yeah. And then when I switched over to doing the interior design business, it was even more stressful.
Wow.
To run your own business because there's so much and the drive and to build the business and stuff. And I got super lucky, or maybe it's serendipity. And I read Gay Hendricks taking The Big Leap, right? If you're familiar with that book, and if you guys aren't familiar, go pick that up. And I learned early on the genius of delegating outside of your scope of genius. And I think I was blessed. I got lucky, and that took off a lot of the weight of being an entrepreneur, which to your point, I think is amazing. And it is a really good act of self-care. And sometimes now with my Wingnut Social, I mean, this is what I do. I do sales and I do the podcast, but I have a team that does all the marketing. Right. And sometimes I feel a little guilty about that, but it's not. It's what I've built. So my next question for you is, so what do you say to the interior designer who does have a successful firm? They love what they're doing, but they feel guilty to remove themselves from it because they maybe feel they're not doing enough in it, or they're delegating too much as self-care, right? There's an aspect, especially I think as women, and that overachieving mind, to feel a little guilty about taking time for yourself or doing that. So address that. Yeah,
what I do is reframe guilt. I'm not going to be able to dismantle guilt I mean, these are decades old guilt, right? My goal is to say, if you're going to feel guilty about not protecting the biggest asset in your business, which is you. Feel guilty about not investing in preserving and reinforcing and fortifying your creativity, which requires you leaving the office, right? So then the guilt just fades away, right? But I've got to reposition it. Feel guilty for not role modeling to your children what it means to be a woman or a man, what it means to be a mother, a father, an expert in business, right? Because do you want them to replicate self-neglect? I know you don't. So we have to break the generational cycles of self-neglect. And we have to stop over-functioning for everyone else and underperforming for ourselves. And this takes place in the office and at home.
That was the best answer. That is a soundbite if I ever heard one. Wow, that was terrific. I mean, when you said that like that, I on a switch flipped, and I was like, my gosh, that really hit. That really made a lot of sense and hit me where I needed to be hit, and I'm sure the listeners out there as well. So, okay, again. Let's say you're out there and you haven't read The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, and you are wearing a lot of hats and you're doing everything with a successful, happy business. What is the first step to find time to take care of ourselves, to be sustainable, to build this business?
Yeah. One of my favorite habits, and it is the one that my clients avoid the most, which tells me it's gold, right? Because these are high achievers. You give them homework, they're paying for my coaching, like they're all in. And then when they're like dodging and weaving, I'm like, oh, this is the good one. And this has been true for 15 years. This is the one they avoid the most. Have a cup of tea.
Okay.
And the reason that I do that is a couple of reasons. We talked about the amnesia, right? We're living neck up. And a cup of tea activates all the senses. So it forces us to take the elevator down and inhabit our bodies. And that's the suffering. That's the disconnect, right? We are all intellect, all hanging out in our head, all strategy, and yet we're not residing with the vehicle that helps us get everything else done. So from the moment you boil that water till you take that last sip, it is a ritual as an opportunity for you to get in touch with your senses. Now, this can take place in an outdoor walk. There are other ways to do it. But the reason that I love the tea is because it does check every sense off. And it invites us to learn how to be in our own company. There's no reading the phone, no looking at the paper, no pen and paper in front of you. Literally learn to tolerate sitting with yourself for the length it takes for you to boil the water to take the last sip. It is the start of a meditation practice. You don't need a robe. You don't need a mountaintop. You don't need a 5-day meditation retreat. You need a moment to reconnect with yourself, to hear the wisdom that's already there. It's just buried in expectations, buried in perfectionism, which I see more in my interior design clients than anywhere else. It is buried in these impossible standards that are silencing the wisdom that's already there, the wisdom that says, what do I need? And it answers right away.
I love this. And this is something the Japanese have been onto for centuries, right? With their tea ceremonies and the mindfulness of it and the actual the focus of being in the moment and appreciating the beauty of the moment for the tea ceremony. So I can see the correlation there with the mindfulness. And when you were saying that, I can see why the pushback would be incredibly real, because to sit with a cup of tea and not have one of my 3 screens here, or my phone or my iPad, or that constant barrage of static, right? That gives me a little bit of angina, gives me a little bit of anxiety. And I am someone who's been meditating forever. But I know I'm one of those that knows what I need to do, but maybe I'm weaponizing things, right? So resonating with me 100%.
Yeah.
I love it.
You're not alone. I mean, this is hard. It is hard. I will ask them to do tasks that to anybody else, homework would be like, oh my God, that's intimidating. Not to these high achievers, but that's terrifying. I mean, that's one of the reasons we keep the machinery going, because, what if we actually do slow down? What are we afraid we're going to see? What are we going to discover about ourselves? And what I can say is, on the other side, there's such peace. There's peace on the other side, not perfection. We learn how to be present, not perfect.
I love it. Katie McDonald, what have I forgotten to ask you on this subject that you think you need to add before we get into the fire round?
There's so much. I hope we have another opportunity to do this again, because you have prompted so many thoughts within me that I'd like to process a little bit, but I really appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Same. I mean, there were so many great takeaways. I don't want to overwhelm anybody, and people don't stick around for 2-hour-long podcasts, so we keep them short. It's the dopamine hits of today's, media, right? All righty. So now, thank you so much, Katie McDonald. Now I have to ask you, are you ready for the What Up Wingnut round?
Oh, I'm ready, Darla.
What would the hashtag on your tombstone be?
Nourished.
Perfect. You're stuck on a deserted island, but you can have your one favorite food forever. What's it going to be?
Can it be lots of ingredients or can it?
It could be a dish.
Okay,
yeah.
Smoothie. It's a canvas. Okay. You can change it. You can get your nutritional deposits before the day starts. Smoothie.
Okay, we will allow it.
Thank you.
And last but not least, please recommend a book that's impacted you on a personal or professional level.
Oh my gosh, this is an oldie, but it's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Now, bear with me because it's so archaic now, but
Stephen Covey.
Stephen Covey, Sharpening the Saw. That was the first time, and this is decades ago. This is while I was in my cray-cray, decades ago when I was like, oh my God, I never thought about that I have that responsibility to sharpen the saw. Made total sense.
What does sharpening the saw mean exactly?
It means, so if you were to cut something with a saw that wasn't sharpened, it would never get through the wood. So if you want to and we're doing a crap job at it. Like, take a moment, take care of yourself, and then approach it. And what would have been 3 hours becomes 30 minutes.
Love it. Sharpen that saw. I love that. I mean, I read that like in my 20s. So
I know,
obviously
me too.
It's been a minute. It's been just 10 years now. Katie McDonald, thank you so much for joining us. Please tell the audience where they can go to find out more about you, more about Be Nourished, and we will call it a day.
Come to my website, benourished.com, BNOURISHED. And there you'll find an opportunity to schedule a complimentary session. If there's any part of you that heard this and said, oh my God, that's me, just come. We'll talk.
You might be inundated. I think that's a lot of us.
You're welcome. Come on in.
Katie McDonald, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Wow, what a story. Katie McDonald, I am so thrilled that you are here with us today to tell this story. It's such a blessing for you to be so transparent and share your pain and your experiences with people in the audience so they can see in themselves where they can heal themselves and take action to begin to take care of themselves so they can be a sharp saw and keep performing at a high level without going into depression or worse, and build a actionable, thriving business and not be sick about it. That's the thing, guys. So if anything Katie said resonated with you and you're looking for some coaching, or if you're looking to reach out and just get a firmer grasp on what it is you're going through and how to heal yourself and take care of yourself so you can be happy as well as successful, make sure to go hit up Katie at Be Nourished over there. And thank you so much for listening to the show. If you are so inclined, please don't forget to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. That does help the show grow and for other interior designers and the like find us. And don't forget to head on over to wingnutsocial.com, check out our services, and let's see how we can work together. Okay, that's it for this week. Remember, until next time, to get out there, get uncomfortable, and be great. If you ain't happy, your business ain't happy, and it just trickles down from there. And I have a hair in my mouth. Maybe also no one is happy. Today's guest, Susan McNuggets. All right, guys, remember Wingnut Social at wingnutsocial.com. We are a marketing agency for you guys. Social